Hey guys, welcome back to Take Flight Garage. Today we're working on the anti-roll bar bushings, and that probably answers your question as to why. On the other car, I had a set of red poly bushings. I don't remember the brand. All I can tell you is that I got them off Pelican. They're not there now, at least they weren't available for this car. Pelican has these PowerFlex bushings. I just went to PowerFlex's website directly. It was a little bit tricky trying to figure out which bushings were correct for this car because they only have everything listed as S2 and turbo. This is I believe 23 millimeter sway bar, so it isn't the bigger 26 mil turbo sway bar, but I was still able to get all the correct bushings. So without further ado, let's dive in here. So for the end link bushings, for the bushings that go inside there, that's these guys. And you can actually see the part number right there. PFF57205. And that's those guys right there. For the actual sway bar bushings, for these drop links right here, those are these guys. And this one is the PFF5720423. Again, pulling all these up. And last but not least, the drop links. These I went with they're only available in their stiffest compound, so there's the part number for those, PFF57210 black. Their compounds come in two versions. Basically, these are street bushings. Their black ones are their race bushings. I opted for street because, again, this car is more of going to be a GTS type build, a sort of OEM plus, capable and capable to be tracked, capable to be autocrossed if I wanted it to be, but not uncomfortable on the road. So I saw one person mention these on Renlist, that they absolutely loved them. And that was, I believe, before the harder ones went out. And I do remember sort of how stiff the suspension was after replacing all that stuff on the early car. I don't want it to be as stiff. And this car with the rear sway bar already eliminates a lot of body roll. There's actually barely any roll in this car. So, and I don't really push it too much to get there. So this will hopefully tighten up the suspension just a little bit. Nothing crazy. We're not doing struts or anything like that today. But tighten up the suspension, maybe give us a little bit better braking performance. And yeah, so without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so a lot of this stuff was a little bit difficult to get inserted and in, so I didn't really get too much filming of the process of it, mostly because I had to improvise. But let me go ahead and walk you through what I ended up doing. What you're going to want to do is find some sort of way to bend these two tabs out. And then what I ended up doing was just taking two screwdrivers, placing them in the hole for the bushing, and then using that as a lever and pressing down until I had enough leverage to where it slipped in. So now all I need to do is bend these back when I get this lined up on the car, just enough to thread the bolts, and then torquing this down should bend those ears back. For the drop link bushings, what you're going to want to do is take this to a machine shop somewhere that can press it in. That's what I ended up having to do. I don't have a vise here. If you do have a vise, maybe you'll be in better luck, but press made pretty quick work of that. And that's all there really is to it. So you can see we have the sport bushings on the drop links, and up here are going to be the race bushings. These are what actually move into the or attach into the control arm itself. So there we go. She's all set up and ready to go back in the car. So I'm going to go ahead and get everything installed, and we'll go from there. All right, everybody. So we got the sway bar all installed and buttoned up in the car. I've actually been driving it for the past couple days, so that's why everything's all put together. And so in this portion of the video, I'm just going to give you a quick summarization of all the tips and tricks that I've got after doing this a second time. So right off the bat, shout out to Tim from Shakrasi Bros. In his channel, he describes a method where you basically just install, when you're reinstalling the sway bar, to do one side first, and once you get that sort of in and roughly loosely bolted in, then you can mount the other side, and that will be much easier than trying to compress the bar and squeeze it in that way. The most difficult thing that I found was bending the ears back on those tabs. I recommend getting a 35 millimeter by 1.0 pitch thread bolt. It's quite a bit longer than those two factory M8s. And what that will allow you to do is you just have to get it close enough to where you can thread in that longer bolt. And once you do that, when you tighten it, it will bend those ears back together close enough for you to thread in the stock, another one of the stock bolts back, and that will pinch those ears close enough to where you can cinch up those bushing mounts, those end links there. Those are a real pain. Those are probably the biggest challenge out of the whole thing, because with the press for that end link, it's really not that big of a deal. You just need a press to do it, and as long as you have a shop nearby, they should be able to help you out and do that. Those guys, you have to bend those tabs that bolt to the actual chassis mount far enough so that you can almost get in the bushing. And then what I ended up doing was using a lot of the silicone lube that PowerFlex provides, which is really, really helpful, by the way. And then I used 2 screwdrivers, like I was mentioning before, to leverage those in. But it worked for both sides, and that longer bolt definitely helped. As far as the torque specs, I believe those 2 top ones are 17 foot-pounds, and then the end link nut that's up there is 18 foot-pounds. I would verify that information first. I'm just kind of going off the top of my head, if I remember correctly. Like I said, I've been driving the car for a couple days, so take that with a little bit of grain of salt. But overall, the car does handle extremely well. And if your bushings fail, it's a good excuse to do them. Each set was about $50, and they all come in sets. So that drop link bushing comes in a set, the end link comes in a set, and then those 2 control arm bushings come as a set. So yeah, I think that's all I've got. The car handles great. I 100% recommend it. And just use a lot of that silicone lube. That really, the bushings fit very well around the sway bar, and they are much less difficult to get on and off than the factory ones were. And that silicone really, really helps if you need to slide them on and off. So I think that's going to do it for this one. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you again in the next one.